last time we stopped at 102. Let's pick up from 103. Looking at the directions from 103, it says find each sum. This one, we have a common denominator, so just copy the 5. And then on the top, I'm going to go 2 plus 3, which is 5. Right, we have an improper fraction, so we're going to divide top one divided by the bottom one. 5 goes into 5 one time. My remainder is 0, so there's no fraction. Right, when my remainder is 0, there's no fraction. Let me take a look at 104. We don't have a common denominator, right? 3 and 2 is not common, but I know that both 3 and 2 both go into 6, so that's going to be my common denominator. 3 goes into 6 2 times, so multiply the top by 2. On my second fraction, 2 goes into 6 3 times, multiply the top by 3. Copy the denominator. 4 plus 3 is 7. We have an improper fraction, so we have to divide. 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. My remainder is 1. Since we have a remainder, I'm going to make a fraction of 1 over 6. So my answer is 1 and 1/6. Alright, so we have these type until 108. Any questions until 108? For 109, we have subtractions. Since I'm dealing with fractions, make sure everything is a fraction. And if it's not a fraction, make it a fraction by putting a 1 at the bottom. I know they don't have a common denominator. 1 and 3 is not common, but I know both numbers, 1 and 3, they both go into 3. 1 goes into 3 times, so multiply the top by 3. 3 goes into 3 one time, multiply the top by 1. Now that I have common denominator, copy it. And on the top, 6 minus 5 is 1. Big numbers at the bottom, it's simplified. So I just call this 1 over 3. This is basically like the two sections that we saw last time. But some of these will have improper fractions. Remember, improper is a big number on top. You have to divide. Any questions up until 114? Now for multiplication, looking at 115, for multiplication, we don't need a common denominator. We need those only for adding and subtracting. But for multiplying, we don't. In this case, we do have a common denominator, but we don't need it because I'm just going to multiply straight across. In my case, I get a 63 on top, right? 9 times 7. I get a 25 at the bottom, right? 5 times 5. I have an improper fraction, so let me go 25 into 63 goes in 2 times. Because 25 times 2 is 50. When I subtract this is 13. So my fraction will be 13 over 25. Once again, for multiplication, we don't need common denominators. Because we're just going to multiply straight across. Sometimes our numbers can be simplified. Let me take a look at 116 to see what I mean. Let me make that a fraction first. I can go 2 times 5 and 1 times 8. I can just multiply it. But let me simplify a number from the top and a number from the bottom as long as we divide it by the same thing. My case, let me divide each by 2. So my 2 is going to become a 1 and my 8 is going to become 4. Right, I made them smaller. Now I'm just going to multiply straight across. On the top I get 1 times 5. At the bottom 1 times 4. I have an improper fraction, so do divide. 4 into 5 goes in 1 time. My remainder is 1. So I'm going to say 1 over 4. Like I said, you can just multiply straight across. You can simplify some numbers. Any questions up until 120? Okay. Now looking at 121, we have division. For division, my division sign, I'm going to change it to times because we know how to multiply. By my second fraction, I'm going to flip it. The second fraction. What I mean with that is that I have 1 over 2 times 5 over 6. I do the reciprocal of the second fraction. I'll flip it. Now I'm going to multiply straight across. On the top, 1 times 5. At the bottom, 2 times 6. My answer is 5 over 12. So for division, change it to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction. Any questions up until 126? Yes. 122? All right. Let's take a look at 122. The 2, since we're dealing with fractions, make that a fraction by putting a 1 at the bottom. So I'm going to call this 3 over 2 times 1/2. Do notice that I flipped my second fraction. Now just go straight across. 3 times 1 on top, 2 times 2 at the bottom. My answer is 3 over 4. Right. Any other questions up until 126? 124? For 124, let me write this as 3 over 2 times 9 over 7. Notice that I flipped the second fraction. Now just multiply straight across. On the top, 3 times 9, I get 27. 2 times 7, I get 14. I have an improper fraction, so let me divide. 14 goes into 27 one time. 14 times 1 is 14. When I subtract this, I get 13. So my fraction is 13 over 14. Once again, you flip the second fraction on division. Any other questions up until 126? Don't forget that on 125, the 9, the first one, make it a fraction by putting a 1 at the bottom. All right, now for decimals, when we're adding decimals, we line up the decimal point. So I'm going to have 6.85. I'm going to add it to 4.54. Like I said, what I line up is my decimal point. I know 5 plus 4 is 9. 8 plus 5 is 13. So carry a 1. 1 plus 6 plus 4 is 11. So my answer is 11.39. For adding or subtracting decimals, line up the decimal point. Looking at number 128, if you don't see the decimal, it's at the end. So this one I'm going to line it up as 2 point, and then 0.1. I'm going to add these numbers. If your numbers are not the same length, you can always add zeros to make them the same length. I have 0 plus 1, 2 plus 0. My answer is 2.1. Once again, line up the decimal point. So that's adding and subtracting. So that will take us up until 138. Any questions up until 138? All right. Now looking at 139, I multiply those numbers. I know you guys know your traditional way. Right now I'm ignoring my decimals. You guys know how to multiply like that. When there's too many digits, I usually use Lattice method, the little boxes. So I'm gonna do going to go 2024 multiplied by 48. I know my little boxes have, they're cut in half. I know 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. I notice the first column and the third column is the same thing. I'm just going to copy my numbers. Because why multiply it again? I already know it. The second column, it's 0 times anything. I know all of those are zeros. The last one, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 8 is 32. Now when I add my columns, that's a 2. 6 plus 3 plus 6 is 15. Carry a 1. Bless you. Now here, 1 plus 1 plus 8 plus 1 is 11. Write the 1. Carry the 10. 1 plus 6 is 7. 8 plus 1 is 9. So my numbers are 97152. I need a decimal point. On my question, I notice the first one has 3 decimal points. The other one has 1 decimal point. 3 and 1 is 4. So my answer should have 4 decimal places. Remember, what I call a decimal place is how many numbers after the decimal point. In my question, the first number had 3 decimal places. The second number had 1. 3 and 1 is 4. That's why my answer has 4 decimal places. Any questions up until 144? No? All right, let's take a look at 145. The second number should not have any decimals. I don't care about the first one. I look at the second one. Just wait for me. I need to move the decimal point 1 place to the right, so do the same on the first one. So I have 33 divided by 87. Once again, the second number should not have any decimal point. So I'm going to go 87 divided into 33. I'm going to put my decimal point after the 33. I know 87 does not go into 33 because 87 is bigger. So I'm going to put a 0 there. Now to continue, let me add a 0 here. 87 into 330. I'm going to try 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Carry a 2. 3 times 8 is 24. Plus 2 is 26. When I subtract this, I get a 9. I get a 6. To continue, let me add a 0. 87 into 690. Let me try 7 times. Let's see if it works. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 8 is 56. Plus 4, 60. When I subtract this, I get 81. To continue, always add a 0. 87 into 810. Let me try 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63, so carry a 6. 9 times 8 is 72, plus 6 is 78. When I subtract this, I get 27. And I can continue. Each time I add a 0 to continue. My answer, I know for here, for the class, we were running it to 2 decimal places. I look at the third number, which is big. So my answer will be 0.38. I said, in my case, we ran it to 2 decimal places. For the final, I'm not going to round it. I'm going to continue. But I'm going to give you guys choices. The questions will have 4 choices. You guys will be able to tell which one is it. I think by 2-3 numbers, you guys should already know which one is it. Like I said, on the final, I'm not going to round it. I'm going to write the whole number. And if it's too big, I'm just going to do ... to say to continue. So I'm not going to round it, but I think by this you guys will be able to tell. Okay, so again, I'm giving you choices, and I'm not rounding on the test. Any questions?